I really want to thank Ollie and the Rudolph Girls bookstore for bringing me here, and I love their bookstore. It is enchanting, it is magical, so I'm so glad I stopped there before coming here. And I also want to thank Lindsay for her support and help here. I am an introverted person, so speaking before a group of people, always my stomach goes flip-flop, and she made me feel so much at home. And going to look at the art gallery here really helped, because I am passionate about creativity. Beyond the Bus, Life Lessons in Leadership is a collection of memories, anecdotes, incidents, vignettes, aphorisms, and observations, many recorded in the journal I kept daily. Although this book is about all the things Mrs. Parks accomplished that people don't know about, this is not a historian's account. The focus of my book is on her soul and on her heart, and the lessons of leadership I learned in the 10 years that she lived with me. When I traveled with her after I learned who she was, I didn't know for 3 years. And when she asked me, I was a very bad student, and when she asked me to sit on the founding board of the Rosa Parks Museum at Montgomery, Alabama. Mrs. Parks is famous because she's the seminal point of history in the civil, human, and women's rights movement. She died in 2005, but her time is now. The lessons she taught me are lessons that can't change what is happening now, which I hope we will discuss in our Q&A. I wrote Beyond the Bus to share Mrs. Parks' heart and soul with the world. She is much more than someone who refused to get up from the bus seat in 1955. She was much more than an icon in history. She was a survivor and the ultimate influencer of future generations. I did not realize until I finished writing the book how much she taught me, and how if we become disciples of her word, how we can all change the trajectory of divisiveness that is happening now. There are many lessons I talk about in my book, but the underlying foundation of what she gently taught me is about having faith in yourself to do the hard work to change hearts and minds of those you meet, not just with your words, but through your exemplary behavior. Mrs. Parks told me that one of the most important things was to lead an exemplary life, because then no one could use your past as an excuse not to hear your mission, vision, and values. It was a very important lesson. She was assaulted throughout her life, both physically and emotionally, but she never used these incidences, which were horrible, as an excuse to stop living. Nor did she allow anything to defeat her spirit. She believed that there are hidden blessings in everything God gives, that being a giving person means you become more open, more giving to others, that pain and fear are illusions of choice. It's simple, she would always say, when you fall down, you must get up. Mrs. Parks once told me, I can't change what is inside someone. That's something they have to do themselves. Another really important lesson. Living according to this principle, she let go and forgave everyone everything. She used the pain she felt throughout her life as a motivator. She chose to champion constructive change in our justice system. Mrs. Parks didn't have categories for people because she was an amalgam of all of them. Her DNA was white, black, and Native American, and female. She didn't quite fit in anywhere, and as such, that's why she understood the plight of equality and freedom, and could connect with so many different groups of people. With every fiber of her essence and reality, she believed that love was all that matters, and that's what she fought for. Where there's love, equality and understanding follow, she used to say, and as important, forgiveness, hope, and reconciliation. By profession, Mrs. Parks was a seamstress. Her stitching was delicate and precise. She made beautiful clothes. But in the larger picture, she sewed pieces of people's lives together throughout the world and lifted them up with tenacity, hope, and pure love. She was a humble, straightforward person. During her lifetime, she encountered many who persecuted her or took advantage of her or disregarded who she was for reasons only known to themselves. Still, she was determined to teach love, forgiveness, and compassion at every event and private meeting she attended. She also accepted any and all invitations to speak because she believed this was the only way to rid the world of prejudice. If people met her, they would not fear her. And of course, whenever she could, she told people of every age, get an education, continue to educate yourself. Through my glorious decade with the humble and authentic Mrs. Parks, she taught the wisdom of letting go of ego. Only then, she believed, can we accomplish what every person should strive to achieve, love and unity. Mrs. Parks also taught, whatever you do, think positively and be concerned only about other people. She continually taught what the Bible teaches, to look at everything in terms of not succumbing to that which will destroy your physical and mental health. I spent countless of hours with Mrs. Parks, listening to her, watching her, and hearing stories about her from her inner cadre of colleagues and friends who stayed with me. She was adamant that association with people of any group that excluded others was discriminatory. Mrs. Parks did not see color, although she was not colorblind. She told me over and over again to forgive everyone everything, but she did not forget. She understood that it was important to be proud of your heritage, and yes, celebrate your color, but that no one should be judged by their color. She wrote in her book, Dear Mrs. Parks, a dialogue with today's youth, justice and truth do not see color. And Mrs. Parks was all about justice and truth, not just to make the laws equitable, but to teach people who met her that they had to approach this concept with love in their heart, not fear. She was proud of her DNA, but deeply affected by discrimination all her life. She also had to balance the ugly truth that her DNA was a result of her ancestors having been raped. But instead of ever complaining or ever growing bitter, Mrs. Parks chose to use the violence that produced her and happened to her, and the continual discrimination against her to document rape victims from the 1930s on. This is in Alabama, which is extraordinary. And fight for human dignity of all races, creeds, and religions. Mrs. Parks believed, wrote, and spoke again and again, I believe there is only one race, the human race. She went deeper in her book, Dear Mrs. Parks, writing, the younger generations must learn from us that love knows no color. They must learn from us that respect knows no color. They must understand that we are all created by the same God who created all of us in his image. She believed that no progress could be made until no one saw color, or grouped people by age, or separated people by religion or gender affiliation, and stopped judging others by the hierarchy of their employment. One Sunday afternoon, we were enjoying tea and cookies. We did that every afternoon, though, but this was a special Sunday afternoon after church, when she read to me what she had been writing and later put into her book, Dear Mrs. Parks, a dialogue with today's youth. Her voice was gentle, but her message seared my soul. The important thing to remember is that when people try to hurt us or do mean things to us, God is with us. God gives us the strength to overcome whatever is bad in life, and he gives us the ability to make it better. There are defining moments for each and every one of us. Having Mrs. Parks read this to me was one of my defining moments. I realized as Mrs. Parks was gently teaching me that no matter what happens to you, it's supposed to occur at that particular moment to teach you, to help you let go of your ego and think only about others. You can be quiet, but in your quest, you must believe you can move mountains.